Why are we the way that we are? Hi, my name is Sydney. Welcome back to hell. And before we launch in and do the thing, this video is sponsored by your mum, Surfshark. Thanks, Mum. So as per usual, because apparently this is becoming a trend with me, this is in fact not the video I had planned for this week. That video, I imagine, will be along in the next couple of days, or at least at some point this week, so if you're looking forward to that, stay tuned for it. But I did see something in the last couple of days that, was not my favorite. And as with everything on this channel, if I have to see it and suffer through it and hate it, so do you. Because those are the rules of my hell gondola. And if you don't like it, well, there's nothing you can do. So you might as well stay. But before we get into the absolute mess that is modern society, let's hear from our sponsor, Surfshark. There are two kinds of people in the world. People who do have Surfshark VPN, and people who don't. People who want online safety, and people who don't. People who want to fight the patriarchy and disgusting bootlickers. No, that is not the message we're trying to convey here. Just a little bit of feminism? Just a little? No. No? Anyway, there are people who want Surfshark. The smart people. Because it lets you bypass country restrictions, access blocked websites and applications, can be used on as many devices as you like, and even has its own private search service that is also ad-free called Blind Search. And today you can have all of that and more when you click the link in the description. You'll receive 83% off and 3 extra months free when you use code Sydney. Right, well, I can see you're busy being a bigot, so I'm just gonna go throw some rocks at single dads. So in the last few days, a tweet started doing the rounds that read, "A knitted penis for extremely small girls to wear in their pants if their parents believe them to be transgender. It is intended for girls so young they demonstrate the product in a diaper." Yeah. I'm sorry. This is one of those kind of videos. Just to explain a little bit, what we're talking about here are things called packers, which are something that transgender individuals can put into their underwear to simulate having the anatomy or the genitalia of their choosing. This is usually to alleviate anxiety or gender dysphoria. Sometimes they can pee through them. Usually they are made of silicone. Usually they're for adults. So there you go. There's a big world out there and we haven't even scratched the surface. So this tweet is accompanied by a couple screenshots of the product because these are obviously very realistic colors and shapes of man pickles. There is also a photo of children's underwear, I suppose, to give the example of how these knitted Pen 15s will look when attached. So not quite a diaper as the original tweet says, but certainly underwear designed for children, which weirds me out a little. I'm not gonna lie. On the website, you can see how big the knitted items are in relation to the size of a chapstick. And the website also says that Bitty Bug Soft Packer is a custom prosthetic packer in sizes appropriate for children, made from soft, durable yarn and polyester filling. It is easy to wear pinned to undies or tucked into a packing pouch. Silicone prosthetics do not come in sizes appropriate for kiddos. The Bitty Bug Soft Packer is lightweight, comfortable, low maintenance, and can be tossed in the washing machine. Adorable and functional. Friend, I don't know if the purpose of pretend penises is to be adorable. Have you seen a penis? They look like sad firefighters. And I mean, yeah, color me crazy, but prosthetic penises don't come in sizes appropriate for kiddos because I'm pretty sure they're not appropriate for kiddos. Anyway, so naturally this tweet and the story surrounding it upset a lot of people for a multitude of reasons. And because the images were shared so widely, the manufacturer responded. "I'm the maker. I make soft packers for trans and non-binary people who find a prosthetic reduces dysphoria. Some parents of trans kids requested a smaller size for their kids who are experiencing crippling dysphoria. No, I don't deal with kids, that would be inappropriate." You don't say. I'm extremely honored to know that there are finally some trans kids growing up in households where they are loved and supported, instead of abused, abandoned, violated, and hated. You all want to protect kids? Stop being violent transphobes. Stop fearing what you don't understand and learn. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. You caught us. There is so much to unpack here, pun not intended. And also, why is it that when people like you and me and whoever display concern for children and the things that are happening to them, We're called transphobes. I also want to know why these people concern themselves so much with the genitals of pudding people. Why do you do this? Why is this? So the creator makes it very clear on the website that these items will be made for any trans person or parent of a trans person, no questions asked. There are also several different sizes that can be purchased, as well as face masks. The website definitely makes it clear that these items are okay for children and teens. If you've been here a minute, you'll know that I have a really hard time with adults pushing adult discussions onto children. And I also have a really hard time with parents pushing gender ideology and gender theory onto their tiny humans. And based on the images and sizes here, we're not talking about adults or teenagers. We're talking about little children who are probably not old enough to be questioning anything. We're talking about kids who eat dirt because it looks like chocolate. The point is, tiny pudding people, for the most part, do not have any concept of their anatomy or what it is or what it means. So, given the ages of the children in question, I would argue that this is entirely parent-driven. And that bothers me a lot. And what's funny is that this has happened before. Back in late 2017, a few news outlets jumped on a story of a mom of a gender non-conforming child who was selling extra small penises for transgender children under the age of 5. I honestly hate this timeline. I don't understand how we got here. These are not words I want to put together in a sentence. Why is the world the way that it is? I feel like I'm having an existential crisis.
Why are you the way that you are? Honestly, every time I try to do something fun or exciting, you make it not that way.
I'm also not going to show you photos of these packers because I'm 98% sure that YouTube will lose its mind. But I provided you with some of my drawings to help illustrate instead. The teeny tiny silicone packers can be worn by children who identify or express themselves as male to give the appearance of a bulge. They come in a variety of colors and are targeted at kids aged 5 to 8. The items classified as extra small are among a number of children's products related to gender expression available on the website transkids.biz. I am way too old for this. Way too old for this kind of thing. I remember the days when children were put in cages outside, attached to their houses, so they could get some fresh air. Your parents weren't even alive when that was happening. Simpler times, easier times. So being that I hate happiness and am in fact the Overlord of Hell, I decided it was necessary to go to this website and found that all the offending products in question have been removed. Now they just have mostly books with some amazing titles such as My Dad Thinks I'm a Boy and A Quick and Easy Guide to They/Them Pronouns. Wow, that's very cool, very good stuff. There's also this very confusing message here where they effectively say that if you send them hate, then they'll send it to the authorities. But for every harassing email, they'll donate to a trans-serving organization that helps trans people thrive. So thank you. So do you not want the hate mail, or do you want the hate mail? I need more information. There's also another website I found that's still up and running where you can get prosthetics for kids age 3 and up. Although I didn't find that specific wording on the site itself, but in an article I was reading about the site. The owner of this specific site said in a 2015 interview that they expanded the kids line in the last year because of the growing demand in Australia and New Zealand, being the largest international customer base. Why am I not even surprised? Australia, this is what happens when you don't let me become your supreme overlord. Now go to your room. Also, can we just talk for a second about how bad this website is? Like, your business has expanded that much that you can't even afford to make this look better? You have all that sweet silicon dollars to throw around. Why does it look like this? Now, for the most part, if you are an adult, I don't really care what you do or what you buy. If you feel the need and it's gonna make you feel better to go out and buy a silicon yogurt rifle, go on your merry way, provided that it does not affect me and I don't have to pay for it or you. As per usual, my main concern is and probably will always be about children. I've talked on this channel before several times about the effects of forcing gender ideology onto children and how parents take an active role in forcing this onto their offspring and how they feel about their anatomy, their bodies, and who they are generally as people. And while I definitely acknowledge that there are children who will experience gender dysphoria and who will ultimately go on to transition or at least broach the idea of transitioning. I think that it's safe to say that the majority of children will not fall into this boat, will not be in this category, and therefore a lot of this is being artificially forced on them for no good reason. There's no necessity here, which is being correlated to the explosion of children either identifying as trans or starting on the road towards ultimately transitioning. Trans activists often argue that the reason for these packers and other items for small children is to alleviate their anxiety and discomfort. They also often point to the suicide rates of transgender youth, which is somewhere in the realm of 45%. And be that as it may, there is still a growing portion of people who claim that they were almost convinced into transitioning as children. Take Walt Heyer, for example. We've talked about him on this channel before. He spent 8 years living as a transgender woman and ultimately transitioned back to his biological sex. When referring to the documentary Transhood, he says, "I marvel at how the events of my childhood groomed me into believing that identifying as the opposite sex was the solution to my gender confusion." In this particular article, he refers to the fact that dressing as a girl was effectively pushed on him by his grandmother at the age of 4, and this is where the majority of his gender issues started.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're a little shy? Do you want to tell everyone if you're a boy or a girl? I just want to tell them that I'm a girl.
Okay, you can tell them that. Okay. Phoenix would like you to know that she's a girl and she prefers she and her pronouns.
Walt goes on to add that transitioning children is child abuse, and he cites a few reasons why. One that I found the most compelling is that doctors don't actually know which children should transition. Christina Olson, a research psychologist at the University of Washington, puts it this way: "We just don't have definitive data one way or another." That's why she's leading a study of 300 trans kids that will track outcomes over 20 years, to be able to hopefully answer which children should and should not transition, she said. So I guess as of right now, nobody really knows. Nobody knows anything about anything. You realize this more and more as you get older. And slowly but surely, your faith in other people starts to wither and die. Do you need a hug? I need Scotty and a beam and a lot of liquor. Walt also references the landmark case where a young woman named Kira Bell, who was formerly a transgender man, sued the UK's only gender identity development service for children, saying that she was treated like a guinea pig and doctors failed to carry out a proper psychiatric assessment and should have challenged her more over her decision to transition as a teen.
Just realizing how traumatic the experience was and how deceitful I feel that the clinicians were during my care. It was heartbreaking. Medical transition doesn't have to be the way for you. You can come out of this the other end.
In this particular case, the High Court went on to rule that children under the age of 16 are unlikely to be able to give informed consent to puberty blockers, which I think falls more or less in line with the standards that we have for other areas, like law, for example, where we try to determine and distinguish at what age children can determine right from wrong. And depending on the state that you're in, this can be anywhere from 7 to 15 years old, but ultimately we cannot definitively pin that down. And this is why so many critics of children transitioning argue that children are still developing cognitively and psychologically. But besides all of that, it kind of makes me mad that when we argue that children should be better protected, we get name called. Much of what I've read on this topic argues that these ideas are implanted in kids' heads, pushed on them from such an early age, and then parents get to parade their kids around when they think that their kid is atypical. I will reiterate here too that I am sure there are children out there who are genuinely suffering from gender dysphoria, and I do hope that they get the help and support that they need. But the vast majority of kids will not and do not. And pushing gender ideology onto them, especially when it comes to parents or the education system doing it, is completely reckless. And I don't know, not to mention the fact that putting fake penises in your kids' underwear is super ethically questionable. and very abnormal. Needless to say, I am doing my best to keep my criticism here PG for the old YouTube, but I'm not impressed. And I genuinely, sincerely believe that there are better ways to support children than implanting the idea that they should feel uncomfortable in their own skin, which I would argue is happening in the majority of cases. And at the end of the day, like I said, I don't really care what adults do, but when it comes to children, we should really be stepping up our game to protect them, given that, coincidentally, they happen to be the most vulnerable and innocent in our society. Now, before I open the floor to all of you, this is just a reminder that you can download Your Mum Surfshark using the link in the description. When you do, you'll receive 83% off and 3 extra months free. Now, I open the floor to all of you. What do you all think? Is this type of thing totally crazy? Does it make you very uncomfortable? Do you think that these parents are in fact trying to do the right thing, that they're going about this the right way? Do you think there is a necessity for these kind of items, that children should in fact be able to access them? And what do you generally make of this issue overall? As always, if you like the video, hit subscribe and the thumbs up button. If you want to leave a comment, feel free to do so, just be respectful about it. And I will see you guys next time.